Success tastes like expensive champagne and smells like designer perfume, at least until someone decides to pour their glass of spite all over your Valentino dress. I'm standing here, in the middle of the Ritz-Carlton ballroom, watching $300,000 worth of marketing campaign results dissolve into nothing but whispers and sideways glances. I'm Everly, and 5 minutes ago, I was on top of the world. Really, darling, we all know how these things work. Margaret's voice carries across the room like a perfectly aimed arrow. Young women getting ahead so quickly. Well, let's just say some of us remember what it was like in our day. The champagne flute trembles in my hand. My mother-in-law's words hang in the air, dripping with implications that have nothing to do with merit and everything to do with destroying what should have been my moment. "Mother," Mark says, but his voice lacks conviction. He's standing there, my husband of 7 years, wearing his custom-tailored suit and that weak smile that's become his signature move whenever his mother decides to take aim at me. "Oh, come now," Margaret continues, her silver hair catching the light from the crystal chandeliers. "I'm simply saying what everyone's thinking. Senior marketing director at 34? That's quite remarkable." Sophie catches my eye from across the room, her face a mix of horror and sympathy. She starts making her way toward me, but Daniel, that snake, intercepts her with some obviously urgent conversation. "I earned this position," I say, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. 3 consecutive record-breaking campaigns, the Miller account, the— "Of course you did, dear." Margaret's laugh is like breaking glass. "And I'm sure having such a close relationship with Victor had nothing to do with it." The room goes quiet. Even the string quartet seems to miss a note. "What exactly are you implying?" I step forward, but Mark's hand catches my elbow. "Everly, not here," he whispers, but I shake him off. Margaret takes a deliberate sip of her champagne, her eyes never leaving mine. "I'm not implying anything. I'm simply concerned about my son's wife's reputation. The hours you keep, the private meetings, the sudden rise to power. That's enough." The words come out harder than I intended, but I'm past caring. "Mark, are you going to say something?" But Mark just stands there, caught between his wife and his mother, doing what he does best. Nothing. "Oh, sweetheart," Margaret's voice drips with false concern. "Did I spoil your little party? Sometimes the truth is uncomfortable, isn't it?" I look around the room, at the faces I've worked with for years, at the campaigns I've poured my soul into, at the success I've built brick by brick. And there's Daniel, barely hiding his smirk behind his champagne glass. Sophie, still trapped in his conversation, mouths, "I'm sorry." The truth hits me like a physical blow. This isn't just Margaret being Margaret. This is orchestrated, planned, a carefully timed character assassination in front of everyone who matters in my professional life. I set my glass down on a nearby table, careful not to let my hand shake. "You know what, Margaret? You're right about one thing. The truth can be uncomfortable. And I think it's time we all got a lot more uncomfortable with the truth." "Is that a threat, dear?" Margaret's eyebrow arches perfectly. "No," I say, feeling something shift inside me, something final and irreversible. "It's a promise." I turn and walk toward the exit, my heels clicking against the marble floor like a countdown. Behind me I hear Mark finally finding his voice. "Everly, wait." But I don't wait. Not anymore. 7 years of subtle digs, of undermining comments, of watching my husband choose silence over support. It all ends tonight. They want to talk about reputation? Fine. Let's see how their reputations hold up when I'm done. The night air hits my face as I step outside, and I pull out my phone. I have a call to make, to Claire, my sister. She's been warning me about Margaret's games for years. Turns out revenge pairs really well with champagne. The front door slams behind Mark as he follows me into our penthouse. 3 hours of silence in the car after the gala, and now he wants to talk. Fantastic. "You embarrassed her," he says, loosening his tie. "You embarrassed all of us." I kick off my heels, letting them clatter across the marble floor. "I embarrassed her? That's rich, Mark, really rich." "She was trying to protect me." He runs his hands through his hair, a gesture I used to find endearing. "Now it just looks like weakness. You don't understand how these things look. How they look." My laugh comes out sharp enough to cut glass. Your mother just implied I slept my way to the top in front of our entire professional circle, and you're worried about how things look? The doorbell rings. Mark moves to answer it, but I wave him off. That's Claire. I called her. Your sister? It's midnight, Everly. We need to talk about this. No, what we needed was for you to talk about this 3 hours ago, at the gala, when it mattered. Claire bursts in, all nervous energy and smudged eyeliner. She takes one look at us and says, "Well, you both look like shit." "Not now, Claire," Mark starts, but she cuts him off. "Yes, now. Because I've spent 7 years watching my sister twist herself into knots trying to please your mother, and I'm done. We're all done." I pour 3 fingers of bourbon into a crystal glass, Margaret's wedding gift, ironically. Want to know the best part, Claire? Daniel was in on it. He's been feeding Margaret information about my projects, my meetings. Mark's head snaps up. What? How do you know? Sophie texted me. Apparently Daniel's been quite chatty lately about my special relationship with Victor. The bourbon burn's going down. Your mother didn't come up with those accusations out of nowhere. That doesn't mean... Mark starts, but Claire interrupts again. Stop. Just stop defending her. Do you know what Margaret said to me at Christmas? That it was such a shame Everly prioritized her career over giving you children? That maybe if she'd been more traditional, more family-oriented, things would be different. The glass freezes halfway to my lips. You never told me that. Because I was trying to protect you. Claire's voice cracks. But I can't anymore. Not after tonight. Mark, your mother is systematically trying to destroy everything my sister has built. Mark paces the living room, his reflection multiplying in the floor-to-ceiling windows. You're both overreacting. Mother has her ways, but she means well. Means well? I slam the glass down. She just torpedoed my reputation in front of the entire board. Victor was there. Mark, my boss was there, watching your mother imply I earned my position on my back. Then quit. The words explode out of him. Just quit. Take some time off. We don't need the money. Mother's right. This isn't how a family works. The silence that follows is deafening. Claire's hand finds mine, squeezing tight. A family works? My voice is deadly quiet now. Tell me, Mark, how exactly does a family work? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like your mother orchestrates. You enable, and I'm supposed to smile and take it until I break. That's not fair. Neither is this marriage anymore. He stops pacing. What are you saying? I'm saying your mother finally got what she wanted. Congratulations. I turn to Claire. I need your help with something. There are files in my home office, documents about Margaret's business dealings with Victor. I think it's time we took a closer look. Everly, Mark's voice holds a warning. Don't do this. Do what? Protect myself? Stand up for myself? God forbid a woman in your family does either of those things. Claire's already heading to the office. I'll start going through them. Mark grabs his coat. I'm going to Mother's. She needs to know what you're planning. Of course you are. I don't even look at him. Tell her I said thanks for the champagne. And Mark? Don't bother coming back tonight. The door closes behind him, softer this time. Somehow that's worse than a slam. Claire returns with a stack of folders. You okay? No. I pour another bourbon. But I will be. Margaret wants to play games? Fine. Let's see how she handles someone who's finally ready to play back. What's the plan? I smile, and it feels like breaking and healing all at once. First, we find out exactly what she and Victor have been hiding. Then we make her wish she'd never heard my name. Numbers don't lie, but people do. I'm staring at financial records spread across my desk at 3 a.m, and Margaret's lies are written in red ink and creative accounting. Sophie's sitting across from me, her face illuminated by her laptop screen while Claire paces behind us, muttering into her phone. Found something, Sophie says, turning her screen toward me. Look at these transfers between Margaret's consulting firm and Victor's holdings. They're routing company funds through shell corporations. My fingers trace the pattern of transactions. $7 million in the last 18 months. No wonder she's been so desperate to keep me away from the board meetings. Claire ends her call, dropping into a chair. That was my contact at the SEC. These transactions, they're not just shady, they're illegal. And Daniel's been covering for them, Sophie adds, pulling up more documents. He's been doctoring the marketing reports to hide the money trail. That's why he's been so threatened by your promotion. You'd have access to everything. The pieces click together like a poison puzzle. That's why Margaret attacked me at the gala. She wasn't just being spiteful, she was trying to discredit me before I could discover this. My phone buzzes. Mark. Third call tonight. I silence it. What are you going to do? Claire asks, but she's interrupted by a knock at my office door. Victor stands there, his usual polished appearance slightly disheveled. Ladies? Working late? Sophie quickly minimizes her screen, but Victor waves her off. Don't bother. I know what you've found. How long have you known about Margaret's schemes? I ask, standing. Longer than you'd think. He closes the door behind him. But not as long as your husband. The world tilts sideways. What? Mark's been helping his mother hide these transactions for years. Did you really think he was just a passive bystander? Victor's smile is sharp. He's been playing both sides, keeping you distracted with family drama while helping Margaret build her little empire. Claire starts to speak, but I hold up my hand. Prove it. Victor pulls out a USB drive. Everything's here, including emails between Mark and Margaret discussing how to handle you if you ever got too close to the truth. My hands don't shake as I take the drive. They should, but they don't. Why are you showing me this? Because Margaret's getting sloppy. The SEC is already asking questions, and I'm not going down with her. He straightens his tie. Consider this my insurance policy. After he leaves, Sophie breaks the silence. Everly, this changes everything. If Mark's involved, it changes nothing. My voice sounds strange to my own ears. It just means the list of people who need to face consequences got longer. Claire grabs my arm. Think about what you're saying. This isn't just about Margaret anymore. This could destroy everyone involved, including Mark. They destroyed themselves. I plug in the USB drive. They just didn't expect anyone to notice. My phone buzzes again. Mark, again. This time I answer, putting it on speaker. Everly, please come home. Mother says you've been asking questions about the company finances. Whatever you think you found, how long have you been helping her hide the money, Mark? The silence stretches for 3 heartbeats. Who told you? You just did. I end the call. Sophie starts gathering the documents. We need to be careful. If they realize how much we know. They already do. I pull up my email. Margaret's probably destroying evidence right now, but she doesn't know about Victor's drive, and she doesn't know I've already sent copies of everything to my lawyer. Claire's phone chimes. Speaking of Margaret, she just called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. Perfect. I stand, smoothing my skirt. Then that's where we'll do it. Do what? Sophie asks, but her expression says she already knows. End this. All of it. I look at the family photo on my desk. Mark, Margaret, and me at last year's Christmas party. We're all smiling, all lying. They wanted to play happy families while building their fortune on fraud. Tomorrow, we show everyone exactly what kind of family they really are. Claire touches my shoulder. Are you sure? Once you do this? I've never been more sure of anything. I take the photo and drop it in the trash. Margaret wanted to talk about reputations? Let's see how hers holds up in front of a federal investigation. The night stretches ahead, full of possibilities and preparations. Tomorrow, everything changes. Tomorrow, they learn what happens when you underestimate the woman you tried to destroy. Tomorrow, we go to war. The boardroom feels like a tomb at 7 a.m., all polished mahogany and morning shadows. I'm here early, arranging documents like weapons on the table, when Victor slides in through the side door. They're destroying evidence, he says without preamble. Margaret had Daniel working through the night. I keep my voice steady. Let them try. You don't understand. Victor leans closer, his cologne mixing with coffee breath. They're not just covering their tracks. They're creating a paper trail that leads to you. The pen in my hand snaps. Ink bleeds across my fingers like an omen. Smart move, really, he continues. Who better to take the fall than the ambitious new director who had access to everything? Margaret's quite thorough when she wants to be. Sophie bursts in, face flushed. Everly, Daniel's team just submitted a revised quarterly report. They're saying you signed off on fraudulent numbers last month. But I never... The realization hits like ice water. The documents Mark asked me to sign, the ones he said were routine approvals. Victor's laugh lacks humor. Your husband's been quite useful to his mother. The boardroom door opens again. Margaret sweeps in, Daniel trailing behind her like an eager shadow. Mark follows, not meeting my eyes. Everly, darling. Margaret's smile is a perfectly crafted weapon. I didn't expect you here so early. We're having a private meeting first. About the 7 million in laundered funds? The words drop like bombs in the quiet room. Or about how you're planning to frame me for it? Daniel's face goes white. Mark steps forward. Everly, please. Don't. I hold up my hand, ink-stained fingers like a stop sign. I trusted you, Mark. All those late nights you spent helping your mother with her business, you were setting me up. Margaret's smile doesn't waver. Such dramatic accusations. Daniel, would you show everyone the documentation we discussed? Daniel opens his laptop, but before he can turn it, Sophie speaks up. I wouldn't do that if I were you, Daniel. The SEC might be interested in the original versions I backed up last month. The room goes still. Margaret's eyes narrow. You're bluffing. My phone buzzes. A text from Claire. SEC agents just arrived downstairs, 2 minutes. Am I? I stand, spreading the documents across the table. $7 million routed through shell companies, falsified reports, forged signatures, and now a desperate attempt to pin it all on me. You ungrateful little... Margaret starts forward, but Victor catches her arm. It's over, Margaret. His grip tightens. I've given them everything. Mark's face crumples. Victor, you were Mother's partner. Partner? Victor's laugh is bitter now. I was her puppet, just like you, just like everyone else. But unlike you, I kept receipts. Footsteps in the hallway. Margaret's composure cracks. Mark, do something. But Mark just stands there, trapped between his mother and his wife, paralyzed by the weight of his choices. The boardroom door opens. 2 SEC agents enter, followed by Claire and my lawyer. Margaret, one agent says, we have some questions about your financial records. What happens next feels like slow motion. Margaret lunging for Daniel's laptop. Sophie blocking her path. Mark trying to reach for me as I step away. The agents moving forward, badges out. Daniel cracking under the pressure, words spilling out like confession. But I'm not watching them anymore. I'm watching Victor, who meets my gaze with something like respect, or maybe warning. Mrs. Harrison, the agent turns to me, we'll need your statement as well. Of course. I gather my documents, carefully avoiding Mark's desperate eyes. I have everything right here. Margaret's voice cuts through the chaos. You'll regret this, Everly, when this is over. It's already over. I turn to face her fully. You tried to destroy me, Margaret, but you forgot something crucial. And what's that? I learned from the best. I smile, and it feels like victory and venom. You taught me everything I know about destroying people's reputations. As the agents lead Margaret and Daniel out, Mark tries one last time. Everly, whatever you think happened, save it for your statement, Mark. I walk past him, pausing at the door. I'm sure your mother needs you right now. You've always been good at choosing her side. The morning sun hits my face as I leave the boardroom, and for the first time in years, I can breathe. But Victor's warning eyes linger in my mind, a reminder that in games like this, victory often comes with hidden costs. I'm ready to pay them. The SEC investigation has everyone choosing sides. I watch from my office as Daniel packs his desk, his hands shaking as he drops family photos into a cardboard box. 3 cubicles down, Sophie's organizing a digital archive of evidence that could bury half the executive board. My phone vibrates. Claire again. 4th call today. I let it go to voicemail. You should answer that. Victor appears in my doorway, uninvited as usual. Your sister's been trying to warn you about something. How do you know what Claire... Because Margaret's lawyers contacted her this morning. He closes the door. They're offering her immunity in exchange for testimony against you. The world tilts sideways. Claire has nothing to do with this. No? Victor slides a folder across my desk. Remember that startup she launched last year? Guess who secretly funded it through one of Margaret's shell companies? My hands won't stop trembling as I read the documents. Claire's signature on papers she couldn't possibly have understood. Dates that line up perfectly with Margaret's larger scheme. My own sister, I whisper. Margaret's thorough. Victor shrugs. She's been planning this longer than you realize. A knock interrupts us. Sophie bursts in, face flushed. Mark's here. With lawyers. I stand, smoothing my skirt. Let them wait in the conference room. Everly. Victor's voice stops me. Before you go in there, there's something else you should know about Claire's company. But I'm already walking away, heels clicking against marble floors, each step carrying me closer to whatever fresh hell awaits. The conference room door feels heavier than usual. Mark stands when I enter, looking more like his mother than ever. We need to talk about Claire. Funny, I was just reading about her business ventures. I sit facing the wall of suits. Tell me, Mark, did you help Margaret set my sister up, or was that all your mother's idea? This isn't about... He stops, recalibrating. The SEC is expanding their investigation. They're looking at everyone now, including Claire's startup. And Mother's willing to keep Claire out of it. All you have to do is sign a statement taking responsibility for the initial fraud. The laugh that escapes me doesn't sound entirely sane. You want me to confess to crimes your mother committed to protect the sister she manipulated into becoming an accomplice? I want to protect our family. Mark slams his hand on the table. Why can't you understand that? Your family, Mark. It's always been your family. I was just the outsider who didn't know her place. Sophie slips into the room, tablet in hand. She places it in front of me without a word. On screen, security footage plays. Claire entering Margaret's office late one night, leaving with documents. The timestamp matches the date of my promotion. Oh, God! The pieces click together. She gave Margaret access to my files. Mark at least has the decency to look away. She didn't know what Mother would do with them. Get out. My voice is ice. All of you. Everly, please. I said get out. They file out, leaving me alone with Sophie. She waits until the door closes before speaking. Victor's been asking questions about Claire's company financials. I know. No, you don't. She pulls up another document. The money Margaret invested? It's gone. All of it. Claire's company is bankrupt, but the funds were transferred somewhere else first. My phone buzzes again. Claire. This time I answer. Everly, thank God. Her voice is breaking. I need to tell you something. Save it. The words taste like ash. I know what you did. What I don't know is why. She said she'd help me fix things. The company was failing, and she promised to bail you out if you helped destroy me? Silence. Then, I didn't know she'd use the files that way. I swear, Everly, I was desperate. I end the call, turning to Sophie. Find out where that money went, and get me everything you can on Victor's connection to all this. What are you thinking? I'm thinking my sister's not the only one being manipulated. I stand, gathering the documents. And I'm thinking it's time to find out what Victor really wants. The sun sets outside my office window, casting long shadows across the city. Somewhere out there, Margaret's plotting her next move. Claire's world is collapsing, and Victor's playing a game I'm only beginning to understand. But they all forgot something crucial. I've got nothing left to lose, and that makes me more dangerous than any of them realize. The emergency board meeting feels like a funeral, and I'm both the corpse and the murderer. Margaret sits at the head of the table, pristine as ever, while Victor lurks in the corner like a particularly well-dressed vulture. The SEC investigators flank the room, their presence turning every whisper into potential evidence. Let's begin, Margaret announces, sliding folders to each board member. We're here to address the allegations of financial misconduct and determine appropriate actions. Sophie catches my eye from across the room, a slight shake of her head. Whatever's in those folders, it isn't good. As you can see, Margaret continues, the documentation clearly shows a pattern of unauthorized transfers and manipulated reports, all originating from the marketing department under my daughter-in-law's direction. I open my folder and feel the floor drop away. There they are. My signatures on documents I never signed, my initials authorizing transfers I never approved. The forgeries are perfect. Mrs. Harrison, one of the SEC investigators, leans forward. Would you care to explain these discrepancies? Before I can speak, the boardroom door opens. Claire walks in, followed by Mark and their lawyers. My sister won't meet my eyes. I have testimony, Claire announces, her voice barely steady, about Everly's involvement in the financial irregularities. The betrayal hits like a physical blow. Margaret's smile grows sharper. Claire, I start, but Victor interrupts. Before we continue, he stands, straightening his tie. I believe there's something else the board should see. He connects his laptop to the projector, and suddenly the screen fills with emails, hundreds of them, between Margaret and Mark, between Mark and Daniel, between Margaret and Claire. What is this? Margaret's composure cracks slightly. Insurance, Victor says. Every conversation, every plan, every step of your scheme to frame Everly, including, I might add, the real transfer records showing where Claire's company funds actually went. Claire gasps. Mark goes pale. You were recording everything? Margaret's voice could freeze hell. Of course I was. Victor turns to the SEC investigators. You'll find it all quite illuminating, especially the parts about Margaret's other shell companies, the ones even Mark doesn't know about. Margaret stands so quickly her chair topples. You treacherous... Careful, Victor cuts her off. The investigators are still here. The room erupts into chaos. Claire starts crying. Mark tries to reach for me, but I step back. The SEC investigators are already moving, collecting laptops, demanding phones. But something's wrong. Victor's smile is too satisfied, too practiced. Why? I ask him quietly, as the chaos swirls around us. Why help me now? Help you? He laughs softly. Oh, Everly, I'm not helping you. I'm destroying Margaret. You're just convenient collateral damage. What do you mean? Check your email, the one you just got 5 minutes ago. I pull out my phone, open my inbox. There it is. An email from an anonymous account containing documents that show my own involvement in a separate scheme. One I had nothing to do with, but with evidence so convincing it would take years to disprove. You set me up too, I whisper. Margaret taught me well. He adjusts his cufflinks. Never play just one game at a time. The SEC investigators are heading our way. Sophie's trying to get my attention, probably to warn me about the email she's undoubtedly discovered too. Claire's mascara runs in black rivers down her face. Mark stands frozen, watching his mother's empire crumble, and I realize this was never about justice. It was about power. Margaret's power, Victor's revenge, my desperate grab for control. We're all just pieces on someone else's board. Mrs. Harrison, an investigator approaches. We need to discuss some additional documentation that's just come to light. I look around the room one last time. At Margaret, her perfectly constructed world shattering. At Claire, who sold her soul to save her company and lost both. At Mark, who never could choose between his mother and his wife, and ended up destroying both relationships. Of course, I tell the investigator, I'll tell you everything. Because that's the thing about revenge. Sometimes winning means making sure everyone loses, even yourself, especially yourself. The handcuffs click around my wrists, cold and final. But as they lead me out, I catch Victor's eye one last time, and I smile. Because he forgot something crucial. I still have copies of everything, and prison gives you plenty of time to plan your next move. 3 months after the arrests, I sit across from Margaret in the prison's visiting room. Her orange jumpsuit clashes with her perfectly styled hair. Some habits die hard, even in federal custody. I have to admit, she says, I didn't expect you to visit. I almost didn't. I place a manila envelope on the table between us. But then Sophie found something interesting in Victor's private servers. Margaret's perfectly manicured nails tap against the metal table. Victor's in custody too, dear. Whatever game you're playing. This isn't a game. I slide the envelope toward her. These are copies of emails between you and Victor from 15 years ago, about Mark's father's death. The tapping stops. For the first time since I've known her, Margaret looks afraid. It wasn't an accident, was it? I lean forward. The brake lines didn't just fail. Victor helped you arrange it, and then you spent 15 years keeping him close, using him, until he finally decided to bite back. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You killed your husband because he threatened to expose your first financial scheme. Then you spent years building this careful, controlling image. The grieving widow, the protective mother, the successful businesswoman. Her mask slips, just for a moment. Everything I did for Mark. No. I stand, my chair scraping against concrete. Everything you did for power. Mark was just another piece you moved around your board, like Claire, like me. So what now? Her voice hardens. You'll expose the truth? Destroy what's left of Mark's image of his mother? The door opens. Mark walks in, followed by 2 investigators. He already knows, I say quietly. I showed him the emails last week. Margaret goes very still. Mark? He won't look at her. They found Dad's old brake lines in a storage unit, Mother. The one registered to Victor's shell company. They're reopening the investigation. You chose her over your own mother? Margaret's voice cracks. After everything I've done for you? No, Mark says. I chose the truth. Finally. I gather my things, but Margaret's not done. You think this makes you better than me? Look what your revenge has done to this family, to Claire, to everyone. The difference is, I never pretended to be anything other than what I am. I pause at the door. And I never killed anyone to keep my secrets. Everly, she calls after me. The company's destroyed. The family's ruined. Was it worth it? I think about Claire, in rehab now, finally getting help. About Sophie, promoted to head of marketing. About Mark, in therapy, learning to exist outside his mother's shadow. Ask me again in 15 years. The door closes behind me, leaving mother and son alone with their ghosts. Outside, Sophie waits in her car. How did it go? They're reopening the case. I buckle my seatbelt. Mark's testimony should be enough to convict her this time. And Victor? Made a deal with prosecution. He'll testify about everything. The murder, the fraud, all of it. Sophie pulls into traffic. What about you? The SEC dropped their charges, but my career in corporate finance is over? I laugh, and it feels genuine for the first time in months. Good. I'm tired of playing their games. My phone buzzes. A text from Claire. 6 months sober today. Thank you for not giving up on me. You know, Sophie says carefully, the tech startup I mentioned is still looking for a marketing consultant. Someone who knows how to rebuild from scratch. I watch the city scroll past, thinking about power and revenge and the cost of truth, about how destroying something corrupt might be the first step to building something better. Maybe, I say. But first, I need to visit my sister. Sophie nods, understanding. Want company? No. I smile, feeling lighter than I have in years. I think it's time for some honest family conversations. The sun sets behind us, painting the sky in shades of redemption. Somewhere in a prison visiting room, a son confronts his mother's crimes. In a rehab center across town, a sister rebuilds her life. And here, in this car, I finally understand. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's about destroying the lies that gave them power in the first place. The startup's office feels different from the corporate towers I'm used to, all exposed brick and natural light. Sophie leads the interview panel, but we both pretend we've never met. Professionalism matters, even in fresh starts. Your experience is impressive, one interviewer says, but there's the matter of your previous company's situation. You mean the fraud investigation that took down 3 executives? I smile. That's exactly why you should hire me. I know every way a company can be corrupted from the inside, which means I know every way to prevent it. Sophie's lips twitch. She knows what I'm not saying, about power, about consequences, about the weight of truth. The panel exchanges glances. When can you start? Before I can answer, my phone buzzes. Claire's name flashes on the screen. Excuse me, I need to take this. In the hallway, Claire's voice shakes. Victor's dead. Apparent suicide in his cell, but his notes, Everly. He left documents about Dad's company, about what really happened before Margaret took control. It wasn't just Mark's father she had killed. The world tilts sideways. Again. There's more, Claire continues. The FBI wants to talk to us, both of us, about what happened before Mom died. I lean against the wall, feeling the cool brick against my palm. Our mother's car accident when we were teenagers, the one that left Margaret as our father's closest business advisor. The one that never made sense. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Back in the interview room, Sophie reads my face instantly. Everything okay? Actually, no. I gather my things. I need to reschedule. There's something I have to finish first. The position might not be here when you return, one interviewer warns. Then it wasn't meant to be. I pause at the door. Some things matter more than career moves. I learned that the hard way. Outside, Mark waits by his car. Of course, Claire called him too. We haven't spoken since his mother's sentencing. You knew, didn't you? He asks. About Victor's investigation into my father's death. That's why you pushed so hard to expose everything. I suspected, but I didn't know about your father's first wife, or mine and Claire's mother. I meet his eyes. Did you? No. He looks older somehow, worn by truth. But I should have. The pattern was always there. My phone buzzes again. The FBI agent assigned to Victor's case. The past isn't done with us yet. Maybe it never will be. What now? Mark asks. Now we finish it. All of it. I get into his car. Margaret didn't just destroy our families. She built an empire on bodies. Victor knew. That's why he played both sides. He wasn't just seeking revenge. He was gathering evidence. And now that evidence dies with him? No. I pull out my phone, show him Victor's last email to me. Now it lives with us. Mark starts the car. The company's gone. Mother's in prison. Isn't that enough? Ask your father. Ask my mother. Ask everyone who stood in Margaret's way and paid with their lives. I look out at the city, at all its gleaming towers built on secrets. This was never just about revenge, Mark. It's about justice. You sound like Victor. No. I think about Margaret in her prison cell, still believing she's the victim. About Victor, playing games until the very end. About how revenge and justice sometimes wear the same face, but leave different scars. I sound like someone who finally understands the difference between vengeance and truth. We drive toward the FBI office, toward more revelations, more pain, more clarity. The startup job will have to wait. Some debts demand payment in full. Sophie texts, "Whatever you're doing, be careful. Power corrupts both ways." She's right, but there's a difference between seeking power and seeking truth. Margaret taught me the first. Victor's death taught me the second. And somewhere between those lessons, I learned who I really am. The FBI building looms ahead, a monument to consequences. Mark parks, but doesn't move to get out. Ready? He asks. I think about Claire, waiting inside, about the truth that's haunted our families for decades, about how ending things sometimes means starting them over. No, I answer honestly, but that's never stopped me before. We walk toward the truth together, neither friends nor enemies, just survivors of the same storm. And maybe that's the real victory, not the revenge, not the justice, but the clarity to know the difference. Some echoes never fade, but we choose which ones to answer.
I am Sarah Brown. I am 28 years old. I work in the General Affairs Department of a fairly large trading company. My boyfriend is Alex Johnson, 2 years my senior. I met him at a club in college, and we have been dating for 8 years. We started considering marriage about 4 to 5 years ago. And both of us have been slowly saving up for it. On my birthday this year, he finally proposed. At a fancy restaurant, enjoying delicious food and wine, Alex snapped his fingers. Then the waiter nodded, the lights dimmed. A spotlight shone only on our table, and he pulled a small box from his inner pocket. Gently opened it. I had such girlish fantasies, but in reality, we were on a camping trip, our shared hobby. In front of the campfire, his favorite pork soup was simmering. And I was drinking my favorite strong canned drink. As the wood in the fire crackled, he rummaged through a bag, pulled out a small box. "This is for you." "What is this?" "It's a ring." "A ring?"
Yeah.
"Marry me." "It's about time we made it official, right?" "I suppose it is about time, yes, I agree." "All right, it's decided then."
Yeah.
Cheers. I was quite drunk at that time. Later, I thought maybe something more could have been done. But such celebrity-like actions wouldn't suit us. Perhaps this type of proposal was just right for us. Sometime after the proposal day, Alex came to greet my parents. "Oh, I'm so nervous." "Think of this as the first challenge and do your best. It's for us after all." "Well, today is my challenge, but next time it's your turn."
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm fully prepared. I'll take today's Alex as a reference. You are cheeky as ever. Blame yourself for falling in love with such a woman. Look, there's my house. All right. I'll put my spirit into it. That's good, but make sure you're well-groomed too. Look, your tie. Saying that, I straightened and tightened his tie. I felt a bit happy, like I was already his wife. But that's a secret from him. My parents' house is a detached house in the suburbs. It has only 4 rooms, but it has a fairly large garden. My father has always loved the outdoors and met my mother while mountain climbing. That influenced me to also enjoy the outdoors, and camping became my hobby. I think it's a regular family. Currently, my father is retired but working at a relative's company. I was excited to join, but it turned out to be a slack job. But getting paid for this, my life is easy and carefree. He even jokes like that. Well, both of my parents are healthy and cheerful, which I tell myself is a good thing. When we arrived at the house, both parents greeted us at the entrance. Alex was still nervous, stuttering even his own name, which he must have said hundreds of times in his life. "Nice to meet you. I'm Alex Johnson." Still, he firmly told my parents. "I would like to marry Sarah." I fell for him all over again, seeing his resolve. My father grinned and said, "Alex, is this really okay for you? If you're fine with this, then by all means, go ahead." What does he mean by this? My father has always been like that. My mother also said, "Sarah is getting married, huh? Once you marry, I'll be very sad." I will be sad without Sarah when I eat salads, get it? She often made a joke song like that. I was at a loss for words. What are they saying, my parents? So, Alex quickly relaxed. And what was supposed to be just a greeting turned into joining us for dinner and then a party. And eventually they were telling him to stay overnight. However, when my mother called Alex's house to say he would stay over, Alex's father answered, "We appreciate the offer, but we must decline. Staying overnight at an unknown house suddenly, and then being potentially charged for something, we can't handle that." Like that, he talked rudely to her. If I remember right, I have heard that Mr. Johnson is the president of a quite large company. Charged for what? Well, I am a president, which means Alex is the son of a president. We often deal with people who try to extort money, which is troublesome. I don't want to associate with such poor, begging characters. Are you saying we are those poor beggars? Her voice was tinged with anger. There is that possibility. All right, I will tell Alex to go home then. Yes, do that please. My mother was furious, exclaiming. Who do you think he is? He had such a terrible attitude. What's wrong? It was awful. I offered kindness by inviting Alex to stay over. But he accused us of extorting money. Then Alex came over. I'm sorry. My parents were once scammed, so they often doubt people's kindness. It's not for you to apologize, Alex. Well, we'll build a good relationship slowly from now. I had a good time today. Take good care of Sarah. My father patted Alex on the shoulder as he apologized. Ultimately, he didn't stay overnight and went back home. At that time, I didn't yet know the real character of his father. And then, it was my turn. Alex's father had built his fortune as an entrepreneur in a single generation. He took a small ironworks passed down from his parents and, through excellent management, turned it into a large machinery manufacturer. Of course, his family home was luxurious. Surrounded by high walls, it was a 3-story reinforced concrete building. Although it was a private house. Seeing such a magnificent house made me feel inferior. Now it's you who are nervous. Alex joked around. Of course, I get nervous too. Look, there it is. Make sure you're well groomed. Yes, thank you. Remaining nervous, I entered the house, greeted Alex's mother who welcomed us, and was shown to the living room. There, Mr. Johnson was seated. Urged by Miss Johnson, I took a seat in front of him. Hello, nice to meet you. My name is Sarah Brown. I am getting married to Alex. It's a pleasure to meet you. Oh, I'm Robert Johnson, Alex's father. Sorry to trouble you coming all this way today. It's futile to say not to be nervous, but try to relax. Yes, thank you. Meeting Alex's father for the first time. He seemed a bit stern and somewhat in a bad mood. Let's cut to the chase. What's your purpose? Purpose, you mean? I'm the president of a large company. As you can see, I have a vast fortune. Is that your goal? I was taken aback. Purpose. The only purpose of marriage I think of is because I love Alex and want to build a happy home together. Yet here he is, conjuring up some far-fetched ulterior motive. No, I haven't thought about anything like that at all. No offense, but what are your parents doing now? My father has retired and then re-employed at a cousin's company, where he is working. I am not quite sure what he does, but he is working happily. My mother is a homemaker and is living well. Hearing this, Mr. Johnson leaned back in his chair with a dismissive air, causing me to frown. I see, but from what I hear, it doesn't sound like a very wealthy life. What is your job? I work in general affairs at a major trading company in New York. General affairs, not much chance for advancement there. Well, yes, that's true. So, you're planning to rely on Alex and me after getting married? Huh? I inadvertently let out a strange noise at his words. What is this man talking about? At that point, something clicked in my mind. I no longer felt like being polite and friendly. What do you mean by that? Mr. Johnson looked down on me and said. Exactly what I said. Your family is poor, and you're scheming to marry my wealthy son to climb the social ladder, right? Your parents also want a son-in-law they can depend on for money to enjoy their old age. Insulting not just me but also my parents? That's intolerable. What did you say? I couldn't help but raise my voice. There's a limit to how much you can belittle people. I could feel my face flushing with anger. Even Alex intervened. Dad, that's too much. Her parents are good people. They welcomed me kindly when I visited to greet them. They're not the type to think about climbing the social ladder or depending on someone. However, his father overpowered the conversation. Be quiet. You're naive, son. Let me handle this. Then let me say something. I cut into their argument. Our family is poor. Sure, we're not rich compared to your family. But we live a decent, average life. And please don't speak ill of my parents. I respect them, and they are honorable people. Oh, calm down, Sarah. Alex tried to intervene, seeing my agitation, but I cut him off just like his father. You, be quiet. At my harsh words, Mr. Johnson glared at me and said, when I say poor, I mean families with less money than ours. Marriage won't work if both parties aren't on the same level. People without money will always expect those with money to provide for them. That's why you will definitely end up doing that too. Am I wrong? You might say it's not like that now, but it will turn out to be true eventually. This Mr. Johnson. Jumping to conclusions. Something in me snapped. Then, that's enough. I understand very well. Please find a wealthy match by yourself. Excuse me. I stood up. Yes, do that. Hey, see her out, she's leaving. Clean this room and entrance after she's gone. While Alex and his mother were flustered, I didn't look back and walked out of the house. Wait a minute. Alex hurried after me. I shouted back in indignation. No. I've had enough. What about that father? Looking down on people like they are beggars, that's the worst. He was truly panicking in response to my fury. Let's try again. Dad was just in a bad mood today. Enough. Why should I be subjected to such things? I wish he would stop belittling people. Calm down, let's just sit and have some tea. Cooling down was the last thing I felt like doing right now. Sorry, but I'm just not in the mood. I'm going home today. Please don't contact me for a while. Sarah. I shook off a clinging Alex and went home alone. After that, he called and emailed me numerous times, but I ignored them. On the day I went home angry, I told my parents everything as soon as I entered the living room. That's a bit harsh. Does my family really look that poor? He said with a face like he was crushing a bitter bug. My mother was appalled. That's terrible. Alex was such a nice person. But this is even worse than that phone call before. So, what about you? Do you think it's okay to break up with Alex? No. I mean, I still like Alex, and I do think about marrying him. I see. Why don't you take a cooling off period and then go see him again? If things still get complicated, I can step in too. Really? Yes, for my dear daughter. It's no big deal. My father was kind and reassuring. Hearing his words, my mother advised. It seems like they don't know much about us, so make sure you talk to them properly. Convinced by my parents, I decided to meet Alex's parents again. I resumed contact with Alex and asked him to arrange another meeting with his parents. He was pleased and quickly set it up. The gong for round 2 sounded. The opponent is formidable. Am I Don Quixote heading towards a giant windmill, or a righteous hero defeating a villain? The visit to Alex's house was set for Saturday on the weekend. If it were a final battle, it would be on a Friday, but for me, it was Saturday. Finally, Saturday arrived. I was restless from the morning, staring at the clock and waiting for the appointed time. When the time came, I met up with Alex and we headed to his parents' house. Entering the house, Mr. Johnson was sitting in the living room just like last time. Hello, it's been a while. I greeted him. Mr. Johnson still had that bothered look in his eyes. What, you came again? Yes, giving up is not in my nature. I replied cheerfully. Naturally, his attitude did not change. No matter how many times you come, my feelings won't change, so stop wasting your time. No, that's not going to work for me. I have my own stubbornness and pride. Hearing this, his annoyed demeanor shifted to one of resignation. Do whatever you want. So, do you have anything to say? I repeated my request for marriage. Yes, please allow me to marry Alex. No. I will not let my Alex marry a poor person. The expected response came. As I've said many times, we are not poor. And just how rich are you to call people poor? Now, the counterattack began. I threw the question right back at him. What? I took over my father's company, which had 20 employees, and grew it to include associated companies with 2,000 employees. That's 100 times bigger, isn't it? There's no way I am not rich, the president of such a respected company. Oh really, and? Are you mocking me? Our sales went from $1 million a year to over $100 million now. Isn't that the company's story? That's not your money, is it? Yes, the company is big, not you. I hurled back what I had thought since the time I stormed out in anger. Struck where it hurt, he began to shout loudly. What are you trying to say? Stop belittling people. If you want to convince me, prove that you are richer than me. Is money the only measure of a person? That's wrong. A person's worth is not measured by money. As I fought back, his voice grew even louder. That's something poor people would say. If you want money that badly, just say it. I'll give you the money, but never come to our house again. That sounds exactly like something a nouveau riche would say. It suits you. Hey, Sarah. Dad, stop it, it's embarrassing. Seeing both his father and me getting heated, Alex stepped in to stop us. You be quiet. No, this is originally a matter between Sarah and me. Shut up. I won't be satisfied until I make this poor person understand my greatness. As Mr. Johnson got increasingly agitated, I also showed no signs of backing down. Exactly, I won't be satisfied until I give this ignorant man a piece of my mind. I won't marry him until this is settled. Seriously, we came to announce our marriage, why has it turned into this? Alex was at his wits' end. What an impudent girl. I want to see what her parents are like. Oh? That's how it is? Then, I'll meet your request. Next time we meet, I'll bring my parents. Yes, bring them. I want to see the faces of the parents who raised such an impudent daughter. Surely, they must be just as rude as her. With that, Mr. Johnson scoffed. How could someone like Alex come from a parent like you? It must be Ms. Johnson's excellent genes. Oh my, I've been complimented. Thank you, Sarah. Ms. Johnson was delighted. Hey. Why are you getting happy? After scolding his wife, Mr. Johnson turned to me and said, Enough, you're not worth talking to. I'll have a thorough discussion when your parents come. A daughter like you doesn't belong in this house. What outrageous words. However, Alex got angry before I did. How could you say something so terrible? I don't consider you a father anymore. I'm going to disown you and sever our familial ties. Then, should I divorce him? He's always saying such awful things, and I don't want to be with him anymore. Ms. Johnson said it nonchalantly. When I got home, I told my parents what had happened that day. After hearing everything, my father sighed and said, Is that so? Well, if that's what they want, I'll meet them as they wish. Exactly, you should tell them off. But, I'd like to meet Ms. Johnson. From what I hear, she doesn't seem like a stranger. You coming along might complicate things, so you better not go. Oh no. But I want to go. My mother started looking forward to becoming friends with Ms. Johnson. I put a stop to that. No way. Mom, your pace would dampen my anger. Oh, and here I am thinking about Sarah. My mother pretended to cry, frustrated. By the way, what was Alex's father's name again? I think it was Robert. Yeah. Robert Johnson. Robert Johnson? Robert. Did you say Robert Johnson? My father pondered the name, seeming puzzled. It was a bit curious, and I asked him as I nodded along. Yes, that's right. Dad, do you know him? No, but something is nagging at me. I can't quite place it. My father continued to ponder. Oh dear, have you gone senile? My mother joked. Oh. That's right, it's that guy, that bastard. It seemed he finally remembered. He knows him? The world is vast yet small, I thought, surprised by the coincidence. What, Dad, you know him? Well, sort of. Now, Sarah, could you contact Mr. Johnson for me? Sure, is next Saturday okay? Yes, that's fine. Also, I'll be a bit late, so you go ahead first, okay? Huh? Aren't you coming with me? I had thought he would be coming with me, so I was a bit surprised to hear he wouldn't. The main character makes an entrance at the end. Okay, I got it. I didn't know what my father was thinking, but I decided to leave it to him. Then the day of the showdown arrived. Stick to the plan, I'll be a little late. I'll contact you when I get there, hold on until then. And as autumn deepened, it was time for our third visit. We arrived at Alex's house, exchanged brief greetings, and were shown to the living room. As usual, Mr. Johnson had a sour face. Hello, Ms. Johnson. It's nice to see you again. Welcome, Sarah. Your father is here today too. I wonder what kind of drink he'd like. Somehow, she seemed cheerful. Seeing her made me feel a bit more at ease. Don't bother with drinks. And why are you here again? This is the third time. Our fine liquor is wasted on poor people. Thank you for your concern, Ms. Johnson, but I'm fine for now. By the way, isn't your father supposed to be here? Did he get cold feet? Mr. Johnson continued to speak condescendingly. No, he's just running a bit late, I apologize. Well, it doesn't matter, it won't change anything even when he arrives. Alex, slightly irritated, rebuked him. Alex has it tough, I thought. Enough already. I'm the one getting married. It's not your place to keep complaining, is it? His words didn't reach his father. Mr. Johnson responded dismissively. Nonsense, am I not doing all this for you? Alex responded, that's more than I need. As we were having this barely passable discussion, my father contacted me. My father just contacted me. He's arrived. Then, the doorbell rang. Hello. Ms. Johnson, welcome, it's been a while. Ms. Johnson did a strangely formal greeting. It's been a while? But, Dad is supposed to be meeting her for the first time. I was curious. Then I heard. Oh, you remembered me, I'm pleased. I apologize for the intrusion, but today I am here as Sarah's father, Daniel Brown. Thank you for your consideration for my daughter. Don't mention it. Well, everyone has been waiting for you. Please come this way. Yes, thank you. Such exchanges took place, and my father was led into the living room. Hey, Robert, long time no see. My father said as he entered, and suddenly Mr. Johnson stood up straight. Oh, you are Major Brown. No, I mean, you were a colonel before you retired. I apologize. Colonel Brown. It has been a while. Then he saluted. His right hand was raised sharply, fingers and thumb extended with the palm facing down. Alex and I could not grasp the situation. Now, don't be so stiff. It's just that I was a colonel and you were a master sergeant, old stories. Besides, this is your house. You've come up in the world. I guess all that training I put you through was worth it. Sir. Well, for now, I'm sorry about the Spartan surroundings. But please, have a seat. Oh, thanks. You have a seat, too. Everyone will be more relaxed if you're sitting. Sir, then I will have a seat. Excuse me. Saying that, Mr. Johnson sat down, but instead of the casual way he had been sitting, he now sat with a straight back. Dad, you know Mr. Johnson? I asked, as the situation was beyond my imagination. Yes, back when I was in the military, this Robert here came in as a new recruit. Contrasting my casually speaking father. Mr. Johnson, who had been quite imposing until now, seemed to shrink. Yes, I was under your care back then. Well, it's quite a coincidence to meet like this, isn't it? Now you're a president? Quite the career leap for someone who used to be a dropout. Sir. I apologize for any trouble I caused during my time in the military. After retiring, I took over my father's company and with everyone's help, have brought it to where it is today. He seemed continuously nervous throughout the conversation. Despite this, my father enjoyed reminiscing. To think that the clumsy recruit is now a president. Good for you that you made it. Sir, could we perhaps stop talking about the past? But as for me, I wanted to hear more about those old stories. Hey. Master Sergeant, is that important? You were a colonel, right? Yes, Master Sergeant is like a section chief if you were to compare it to a company role. I was, well, a bit higher than that. Mr. Johnson nodded vigorously in response. Sir, I had no idea that Colonel Brown's daughter would be involved with my Alex. My father chuckled heartily. Let's drop the ranks. I'm retired now, just a civilian. At those words, Mr. Johnson responded even more deferentially. Sir. Then let me do so. By the way. My father straightened his back a bit, looking down on Mr. Johnson. I've heard a lot from my daughter. Since the old days, you've had this odd fixation with superior and inferior statuses. I told you countless times to stop, but you're still at it, aren't you? And now I hear you've been looking down on my daughter, calling her poor? Exactly right. Alex's father shrunk even more. Sir. I am very sorry for that. Since retiring, I've been working with a company you might know. Anderson Heavy Industries. It's the same company that made the tanks you used to drive. My cousin is the president and I'm now the director of the technical development department there. Thanks to my connections with the army. Yet another connection spilled from my father's mouth. This revelation widened Mr. Johnson's eyes. What, Anderson Heavy Industries? Yes, that's right. If I remember correctly, our companies have a business relationship with you. Yes. Anderson Heavy Industries is a very important partner to our company. And we are extremely grateful for their support. I didn't come here to talk about work, but given the current situation, maybe it's something to think about? The pressure from my overlooking father was immense. And Mr. Johnson shrank even smaller. For me, who had been looked down upon as a poor, and wanted to see what her parents look like. This was truly exhilarating. No, that would be very troubling. At that response, my father's tone became slightly harsher. Then shouldn't you, as a parent, be blessing the marriage of Alex and Sarah? We're not as poor as you think. Yes, you are correct. I am very sorry for my rude behavior. Saying that, Mr. Johnson continuously apologized in his formal position. Did you hear that, Alex? Sarah. Now, there should be no more issues with your marriage. My father looked up with a mission accomplished expression and turned to us. Yes. Thank you very much. Alex sincerely expressed his gratitude. Dad, thank you. I also expressed my thanks. If it weren't for my father, this conclusion might not have been possible. I truly felt grateful to have my father. Mr. Johnson remained looking down. Ms. Johnson, who was pleased with the term Sergeant Johnson, placing her hands on her hips and striking a defiant pose. Sergeant Johnson. With this, you agree to their marriage, right? Even you, what are you saying? Mr. Johnson became quiet. My father looked at me, gave a thumbs up, and winked. Then, Alex and I had our wedding without a hitch. Many of my father's university classmates attended the reception. It seemed he and his classmates had been prestigious in the military because Sergeant Johnson was made to stand at attention and was teased by everyone. At the wedding entertainment, my father's classmates performed something called military exercise. Of course, Sergeant Johnson was in charge of calling the commands and led the routine. Watching these grown men sweat as they exercised, Alex and I burst into laughter. After that incident, Ms. Johnson started calling his husband Sergeant Johnson and commanding him whenever she had requests. Now, she seems to have the upper hand. Alex and I are living a happy life together. We are blessed with 2 sons. My father adores his grandsons and becomes completely soft when he sees them. One day, when a friend from my father's days visited, they saw him being affectionate with his grandsons and chuckled, saying, "The man who was called the Demon Daniel." Today, my father and my sons are playing heroes in the garden. Special move. Miracle beam. Zop. Geek. I've been hit. Both my father and children are covered in mud. Really, they're just boys, huh? Saying this, I laughed along with my mother. My children, maybe you'll become real heroes in the future? Keep it up, future heroes. My name is Jocelyn. I am 29 years old and have been married for 2 years. My husband's name is Danny. I have been working as an insurance salesperson since graduating from high school. It's been 10 years since I joined the company. But I have a boss named Susan who I really don't get along with. Jocelyn, are you finally getting married? Yes, that's right. Congratulations. But I suppose he's not much of a catch, right? Why would you say that? Sorry. It's just that the guys these girls at our company marry are all so lame. I just thought your husband must be low level too. You really tear him down, don't you? Susan is 1 year older than me. She is single and has no boyfriend. Over the 10 years since I joined the company, several younger female employees got married before Susan did. She always got irritated whenever she heard marriage news. And she always followed the pattern of prying into the spouse's details and making snide remarks. Until now, I was just an observer of those conversations, but finally, it was my turn to be spoken about. However, Susan's reaction this time was a bit different. So? What does your partner do? Oh, you mean his job?
Yeah.
Not that it's anything impressive, but I'll listen just for the sake of conversation. What will you do with that information? If you're hiding it, it must be because you're too embarrassed to say. It's not like that. Then there's no need to hide anything, right? I didn't want to talk too much about him to Susan, who loves gossip. But she was so persistent that I ended up telling her which company my husband worked for. Danny works for a company that is well known as a top-tier corporation. Wow. Really? That company is super top tier. But that means the work is tough. I see. But where did you meet such a high-quality guy, Jocelyn? We've been together since our student days. Really? That was lucky. Lucky? Well, I mean, you have such an average face and seem like a typical girl. I was just curious where you met such a good person. That's a rather sharp way of speaking. Oh, not at all. If it sounded like sarcasm, I apologize. It's okay. Introduce him to me sometime. Yes. We had a conversation like this 2 years ago. I had no intention of introducing him, but Susan was so persistent that I let her meet Danny just once. I had no idea it would turn out like this. Long time no see. Looking forward to working with you again. My company occasionally transfers people. Susan had been working at another branch since last year but now returned. As I had been able to work without stress for a year since Susan was gone, I was quite upset when I learned she was coming back. Looking forward to working with you again. How are things going with your elite husband? You mean Danny? Yes. Why do you care? Just a little curious about whether you're still getting along. I see. By the way, I heard you recently bought a condo. Yes, I thought paying rent was a waste, so I finally bought one. But how do you know that? Just a little bird told me. Have you been in contact with Danny? What? You knew? Susan too, huh? What do you mean too? Never mind. How long have you seen Danny? About a year ago. I ran into him in town after I transferred, and we just hit it off. I see. After hearing the story, it seemed that Susan had run into Danny by chance after she transferred. She had been interested in Danny from the moment she first met him, and boldly struck up a conversation. The two of them clicked and are still getting along well. And now, Susan had some shocking news. If you knew I was dating Danny, I don't have to hide it. Oh. So you're not just in touch, you're actually dating him. That's right. Sorry. You don't need to apologize. Is that the composure of a wife? Well, then I'll let you in on another shocking fact. A shocking fact? What happened? Actually, I'm pregnant. It's Danny's baby. It's still very early, though. What? I didn't hear you clearly. Whose baby did you say you're carrying? Danny's. Is that so? I got the DNA of a rich man. Since I'm pregnant, you loser need to leave. Excuse me, I don't understand what you're saying? It seemed Susan was pregnant. The father was Danny. Susan planned to kick me out of the condo and would live there with Danny herself. Susan probably hadn't been informed of us at all. So, you, the loser, will leave the condo. Why do I have to leave the condo? Think about it. I'm pregnant with your husband's child. Naturally, you two will get divorced, and you, the loser who got dumped by Danny, should leave the condo. What? But I'm single, you know. What? Wait, what are you talking about? Are you confused because you're upset? I am perfectly calm. Haven't you heard anything from Danny? I haven't heard anything, but what? We got divorced last year. What? Is that true? What do you mean? Danny didn't tell you anything at all? No, he hasn't told me anything. Is that so? Last year means around the time we started dating? It could be around that time, yes. Danny and I divorced last year. Though we had been together for a long time, our marriage ended after just 1 year. The reason was entirely on Danny's side, and I received more property division than usual. With that money, I boldly bought my own condo. Susan was under the misunderstanding that Danny and I bought the condo together. Why are you living in the condo if you're divorced? Why? Because I bought the condo. I don't understand what you mean. Has Danny mentioned anything about the condo? He said he bought a condo and is living there now. Really? Susan, you've been deceived. He should be living in a condo with his girlfriend now. His girlfriend? I'm Danny's girlfriend. Do you want to hear why we got divorced?
Yeah.
Tell me. The reason for our divorce was Danny's infidelity. Infidelity? With whom? He cheated with a young girl and we got divorced. This is the first I've heard of it. Maybe Danny thought he could keep living as if he was still married, while having an affair with her and also cheat with you. I was considering divorcing Danny after he cheated. But I wanted to trust Danny again, having been together for so long. After many discussions, Danny strongly requested a divorce, offering more property division. So I decided to divorce if he was that determined. It appears that Danny was also cheating with Susan, aside from that young girl. Realizing what a scumbag he truly was, I almost wanted to applaud Danny's dexterity in juggling his affairs. So, even though I'm pregnant, I'm not his main girlfriend? Don't ask me. I wouldn't know. You better discuss that with Danny. But Danny is crazy about me, so I won't lose to some young girl. You're very confident. I'll take Danny away from any other woman. He's a quality man. Well, good luck with that. Then, for a while, Susan was off work due to severe morning sickness. A month later, she returned to work, and she had more shocking news. After all, Danny told me I'm his number one. Is that so? Good for you. He was happy when I told him about the baby, and he chose me over the young girl. Then that's good for you. So, I've decided to quit my job. What? Really? I'm going to be a full-time homemaker. You've always wanted to be a homemaker, haven't you? That's great. It seems like I'm special to Danny after all. Then I wish you happiness. Well, I guess we won't be seeing each other anymore. And you must be feeling lonely having your husband taken away, but take care and stay healthy. Danny seemed to have chosen Susan easily. Despite having paid a large amount of property division to leave me for a younger woman. Susan, utterly elated with happiness, had no idea at that time that Danny was keeping another secret from her. A few months later, Susan, now visibly pregnant, suddenly appeared at the company. Susan, long time no see. Is something wrong? Did you know about it? What? What are you talking about? That Danny has quit his job. What? Danny quit his job? You didn't know either. I've been deceived all this time. When we were married, he often said the job was tough and that he wanted to quit. But when did he quit? Probably after you divorced. I see. Danny quit his job sometime after our divorce. Apparently, he quit impulsively after a dispute with his boss. After quitting, Danny was dumped by the young girl who was the reason for our divorce. It seems that the young girl was Danny's true love. But Susan's pregnancy conveniently led to their marriage. You didn't realize he had quit his job? He was leaving the house in a suit every day, so I had no idea. That's terrible. He was once my beloved husband. But now I think he's the worst from the bottom of my heart. If I had known it would come to this, I would have stayed single. Maybe that would have been better. I got suspicious because he wasn't living as large as before. So when I pressed him, he told me. Is that what happened? By the way, why are you here today? I quit this company without discussing it with him. You resigned without consulting him. I thought there was no need for me to work since he was working at a top company. He did have a good salary at his company. I was planning to be a full-time homemaker and focus on raising children. Then, are you coming back to our company? That's what I came to ask for. Danny also asked me to. I see. I hope you can get rehired. I still remember the proud look on Susan's face when she took Danny from me. But now, her face looked completely different. They already hired someone new and rejected my reapplication immediately. Is that what happened? I shouldn't have quit this job. It had good pay and I liked the work. At the time, you quit suddenly. For now, just focus on having a healthy baby. What are you trying to act nice for? You must be thinking this serves me right. I'm not thinking that. I thought I stole a quality man, but he turned out to be a huge flaw. If you're told it's your own fault, there's not much you can do about it, right? I shouldn't have taken him if I knew it would come to this. If you say that, it's unfair to Danny. He loves children, so he'll surely be a good father. I really don't need a man who can't earn much. Don't say that. Try to get along from now on. You're probably laughing inside. That's not true. Feeling pity for Susan as Danny proved to be a disappointment, I was really glad I divorced him. Susan left the company with a heavy heart. A few months later, Danny suddenly called me. It's been a while. What's up? Well, I just wanted to hear your voice again. What's that about? Isn't it about time for the baby to be born? Actually. What? What is it? Susan found out about my affair and left. What? You cheated with another person? You never learn. Because it's not fun talking with Susan, and I'm not happy with her, so I had to cheat. What's that? Danny, you really only think about yourself. Of course. My own happiness comes first. I see. You always love yourself the most. By the way, are you working properly now? I'm working at a company with a low salary now. I shouldn't have quit my previous job. That was a waste. It seems Danny cheated again. This led to discussions about divorce with Susan. And it looks like she might sue him for property division and child support. And then, he said something unbelievable to me. Jocelyn. Let's get remarried. What? What are you talking about? Because you used to love me so much. That's a story from the past. I've realized after being apart. What have you realized? I need you. What's that? You're too smooth. I don't need you anymore. You earn a good salary, so even with my low salary, we could live normally, right? So what? Also, when we divorced, you took a huge amount of property division from me, right? My current poverty is partly your fault. I promise I won't cheat ever again. Please, let's try again. No way. Danny, you're a father now, so you should think about your child first. You need to have a serious talk with Susan. Danny's cheating habits will probably never change. I clearly refused him over the phone and blocked his number, not wanting any contact in the future. I don't know what happened to them after that. A year has passed since Danny's call. I have a new boyfriend now and am living very happily. When we went to a restaurant. Huh? Susan, is that you? Oh, long time no see. Do you work here? Yes. I have to work to make ends meet. You're working hard. You introduced me to such a man, and now my life is a mess. No, it's more like you took him from me. I didn't think he was that kind of man. Then, my boyfriend, who knew the whole story, said just one thing. It's a waste of time to talk to a thief like her. I don't want our date to be ruined by such a woman. Let's go home. With that, we left the restaurant. The frustrated look on Susan's face at that moment. I will never forget that face. It seems Susan and Danny are still living together for the sake of their child without getting divorced. Because Danny doesn't earn enough, Susan has to work multiple part-time jobs. Her life is far from her dream of being a homemaker. The price she paid for trying to steal happiness from others was great. As for me, I have received a raise at work and am enjoying my job. And now I'm spending a peaceful and happy life with my kind boyfriend. When I had my husband stolen by a close boss, those were truly mentally tough days. But now I want to spend calm and happy days. You promised you would leave when I returned, didn't you? The month is almost over, let's handle the last task, hand over the divorce papers. Next to my ex-husband stood a woman and a child. The woman was holding hands with a child of about preschool age. Let me introduce you, this is my new wife Michelle. Michelle was still young and quite flashy. As I said earlier, we are strangers now, you no longer have the right to be in this house. My ex-husband said this and then suddenly flashed an unpleasant smirk. Sign the divorce papers, and your son and you get out of the house. His gaze looked down upon my son Ted and me, gleaming with triumph. He believed everything was going according to his plan. So, when he learned the truth, he collapsed on the spot. How could you do this, thinking you were just a homemaker who knew nothing? As he muttered, Ted said in disbelief. What? Dad, you know nothing? When Ted showed him a book, he became half frantic. My name is Ashley Manning. I am 42 years old. A part-time homemaker. I have a 16-year-old son with my husband, Robin, who works for a trading company. He travels frequently for work, both domestically and internationally. And I have mostly raised our son on my own. Currently, my husband is on a solo assignment, so we are nearly separated. And we mostly communicate through online calls or messages. The distance is too far for a day trip though within the country. He only comes home during Easter, summer vacation, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. Even then, we hardly spend quiet time as a family of 3, just dropping by the in-laws' home. Which is about an hour's drive away. I think my relationship with my husband is neither particularly good nor bad. After many years of marriage, even couples who live together might find this to be quite normal. There is familial love, but no romantic passion between us as a couple. His workplace is a major trading company, so we haven't had any financial difficulties. Because my husband was often away, I stayed at home full-time when Ted was younger to make sure he wasn't lonely, which my husband agreed to. However, as Ted reached the upper grades of elementary school, and my husband started living separately due to his assignment, Ted seemed to find me somewhat bothersome. I recall my brother was the same at that age. It seems to be a phase they go through. That made me want to find a job. It's fine to work, but I don't want to be seen as incompetent. That was the first thing he said when I talked about wanting to work. Maybe choose a job that feels like an extension of your hobbies. Something that feels like an upgrade. I was fine with any job as long as the workplace suited me. But I considered his opinion and decided to assist at a flower arrangement class. I have a license in flower arrangement. And since many of my husband's work colleagues are foreigners, it seemed useful. Nice, that will be useful even when I'm transferred abroad. My husband agreed, so I continued that part-time job. Financially, we were not struggling. But I still wanted to have a serious conversation with him about our son's future.
Yeah.
I was also thinking we need to talk about the future seriously. I was relieved by his response. Ted is a freshman in high school and will be advancing to the next grade this fall. It's about time to seriously decide on his career path. I'm supposed to return to the head office this fall. It's the right time with the school advancements and all. But the future matters my husband talked about. When he returned for the Easter holiday was unexpected. I want a divorce. He started the conversation without giving a reason first. We've been living apart for a long time now, and that's enough reason for a divorce. It's not too late for both of us to start a new life. Wait. That's so sudden. This is indeed a bolt from the blue. I hurriedly interrupted his words. Living apart? That was just because of your solo assignment. I never thought of it as living apart. But you didn't come with me, did you? That was because of Ted's school and also your father. My father-in-law is alive and well, living alone in a senior citizen's apartment. Originally, the house we live in was my husband's family home. But when we got married, his parents moved out to that apartment. My husband didn't have a good relationship with his father. While his mother was alive, he still kept in touch with his parents. But after her death, he stopped all contact. I told you to leave that man alone, didn't I? He's in a proper facility and doesn't need us to take care of him. I can't just ignore him like that. The estrangement between my husband and his father wasn't due to any particular reason. It was the accumulation of minor issues over many years. And even among family members, relationships can sometimes not work out. Both his father and the late mother were very kind people. That's why I had been close to them both. And kept in touch with my father-in-law even after he was left alone. I visit him at the apartment occasionally. That was something you did on your own, right? I never asked for it. That was indeed true, but it's not something that can be so easily dismissed. It's the same with Ted's school. If you had wanted to, he could have transferred schools. Wasn't it you who wanted Ted to enroll in that school? Ted had gone through the so-called entrance exams and entered a school that provided education straight through to university. I wanted it too, but if you really wanted to, you could have transferred schools, right? That's true, but you can't just do that. That means you chose not to live with me. So, please handle this. He said this as he handed me a completed divorce paper. I've come back, but you can't stay with me in this state. I'll stay at a hotel. Leaving those words behind, he left the house. I was left behind, stunned. Why are you sitting in the dark? Where's Dad? Ted had been out watching a movie with friends that day. He returned home late at night. My husband had come and gone in the mid-afternoon. It seemed I had just sat there for hours. What's this? Ted picked up the divorce papers that were still on the coffee table. What should I do? How should I explain this? I still hadn't gathered my thoughts, and I didn't know what to say to him. Seeing me frozen, Ted sighed, put down the divorce papers, and left. Oh, I would be abandoned by not only my husband but also my son. As I sat there stunned, Ted came back quickly. Eat something. If you're hungry, you can't think straight. Eat well, sleep well, and then we can think about what to do next. Saying that, he offered a plate with 2 big sandwiches. They were big but not in good shape, obviously made with effort. Thinking that, tears began to spill from my eyes. Just eat, will you? Ted pretended not to see my tears and urged me to eat, and I ate the sandwiches through my tears. The simple sandwiches tasted better than any delicacy I had ever had. After returning to his assignment, my husband sent several messages. They went something like this. I want to get divorced by next fall. I'll properly pay child support for Ted until he is an adult. Adulthood starts at 18 now, but since he will turn 18 while in high school, I'll take care of him until he graduates. The message was a list of words as if he was doing me a favor by paying. Ted isn't just my child, but our child. How can he so arrogantly speak of his minimum obligations? I will be back from my assignment this fall and will live in that house. Make sure you are prepared to move out by then. 6 months should be enough time to find a suitable place. I'm generous enough to pay for the moving expenses. If I need to move from the house I had lived in for many years, I will surely make him pay. However, I can't see why I need to leave. Why must I leave this house? The reason for the divorce is that the marriage has naturally broken down. So I think I don't need to pay any money to you. But I recognize your long-term dedication as a homemaker. And I am willing to pay some support money. Of course, I won't ask for any money from you. I see no reason why I should pay him. I wasn't just living for fun. We were living apart, but when my husband couldn't come back, I would visit him with Ted at his assignment, and we interacted like a normal family. I cannot accept natural breakdown as a reason. If you say you can't make a living with your current job, I'm willing to help you find a job. But in that case, you'll need to leave this town. I assume you wouldn't enjoy running into me either. My current job as a flower arrangement assistant isn't enough to make a living. But being told to leave this town and find a job elsewhere is something I cannot accept. Why must I do such a thing? I'll give you custody of Ted. He would be more comfortable with you since you've been together for so long. Plus, he's nearing adulthood and shouldn't rely on his parents forever. If Ted needs me, I'm willing to help with some matters, but I won't demand any visits. If we do get divorced, I surely intend to take custody of Ted. But reading this, it seems like my husband is even trying to abandon his son. How can he be so devoid of emotion? How hurt Ted would be if he knew all this. I sighed after reading everything, finding none of the reasons acceptable. What an unreasonable argument. I was shocked and desperate when I was told about the divorce. But I have started to think I am better off without such a selfish person. I went to his place of assignment to talk. It was during work hours, but I have a key to his apartment. As I entered, the room was as neat as usual. It was as if no one lived there. He's always been meticulous, but it really looked like a show apartment. As I waited in the room, my husband came home in the evening. You were here? If you were coming, you should have called. He said grumpily. Did you bring the signed divorce papers today? I'm done with it, you could just file them yourself. Without even looking at me, he took off his suit jacket and tie. He meticulously hung each item on hangers, smoothing out the wrinkles. He was always like this. I remembered the times we lived together. Everything was so proper, without any flaws. What, you thought there might be a woman here? Sorry to disappoint. There was indeed no such indication. What about dinner? I've already eaten, as usual. It's been a while since I enjoyed a homemade meal at home. He said sarcastically, then took a cold beer from the fridge, sat at the table, and started drinking. You understand now why I said I wanted a divorce. I'm tired of living like this for years. Then you should have just said you wanted me to come. Ted is there, and even though you say it's just a part-time job, you've started working and have a rhythm to your life. I can't just ask you to drop everything and come. He said this and took another sip of his beer. Living like this, I suddenly thought one day. Maybe it's okay not to have a family. It seems he is insisting that the separation due to his solo assignment is the cause of the divorce. Then could you at least wait until Ted graduates from high school? It's only 2 more years, no, just 1.5 years left. No, I want a divorce by next fall. What happens next fall? My husband reacted slightly to these unexpected words. I told you, I'm supposed to return to the head office. I thought it was a good opportunity. Can't we live as a family for just that much longer, at least for the last year? No, it has to be by next fall. The discussion was at a deadlock, and he insisted on having the divorce by next fall, no matter what. Unable to do anything, I left his room, stayed at a hotel that night, and decided to go home the next day. I couldn't bear to spend any more time alone with my husband in that room. After that, I never visited his place again. I realized it was futile. Important matters were handled via messages that would remain on record. And I started to prepare for various things as fall approached. First was negotiating unacceptable aspects of my husband's proposal. I wanted him to continue providing for Ted's education until he graduated from college. If he didn't agree, I wouldn't sign the divorce papers. That triggered an angry phone call from him. I said until he's 18. If you don't like that, I won't pay any child support after the divorce. That's impossible because we are still married until I submit the divorce papers. Besides, you have a duty to pay child support until Ted becomes an adult. After several exchanges on this issue, he finally gave in. Fine, I'll pay for his tuition until he graduates from college, but only for 4 years. If he fails and has to repeat a year, I won't pay for anything beyond that. Understood, I appreciate it for the 4 years. Please make that into a notarized document. Are you saying you don't trust me? Of course, that's a given. I can't trust a man who suddenly pushes for a divorce for such reasons. I never know when he might change his mind. If you won't listen, we'll go to mediation, and if that doesn't work, to court. That made him agree to put it in a notarized document. But I won't pay any other money for the divorce. Yes, that's fine. Of course, I won't pay any either. Good, then hurry up and submit the divorce papers. Each time he said it, I challenged him with aspects of the divorce terms I couldn't accept. About the division of property that needs to be properly handled too. I've been supporting you, who doesn't work. Do you still plan to take more? I wasn't being supported. I was raising your child. If you're going to call me an unemployed parasite, we'll start with mediation and go to court if necessary. After saying this, although reluctantly, he agreed to the property division. And of course, that was put into a notarized document too. He was a high earner, so it was a significant amount. You've taken enough now, just submit the divorce papers already. Oh, it's okay to wait until next fall, right? Something might still come up, so please wait. If you think delaying will make me withdraw the divorce, you're wrong. As fall approached, my husband increasingly couldn't hide his irritation. Why are you so irritated? It doesn't matter if it's slightly delayed, right? It matters a lot. Is there some urgent reason? If there is, please tell me, and I'll consider it. Even when I offered concessions, he said there was nothing of the sort. So, I think there's no problem if I don't agree to the divorce until I'm satisfied. Right now, I hold the cards. I intend to play them as I see fit. As I hesitated to sign the divorce papers, I moved forward with various tasks. And the months flew by. When will you submit the divorce papers? It's already July. My husband, who hadn't come home for Easter, said this impatiently. Yes, it's July now. But there are still a few months until fall, and a little delay shouldn't be a problem. I'm repeatedly telling you to do it definitely by next fall. I want to have the divorce settled before I return to the head office. Even if you say that, it's hard to make up my mind and there's a lot to do. I deftly dodged my husband's demands. And you've already decided where you'll live, right? Don't worry, that's already settled. Good, because I'll be commuting from that house starting the new fiscal year. Relieved, my husband let out a genuine sigh. Take care on your way back. Even so, Ted and you will be leaving the house in turn with me. Remember, it's not like I'm going back to your place. I already know that without being told. I no longer intend to accept this man as family. And in the last week of September, my husband came home. All sorts of arrangements have been made, but the divorce papers have not yet been submitted. You promised to leave when I returned, right? And now the month is almost over, time for the last task, handing over the divorce papers. A woman and a child were next to my husband. The woman was holding hands with a child about preschool age. Let me introduce you, this is my new wife Michelle. Michelle was still young and quite flashy. Nice to meet you, is this your son? Michelle awkwardly hid the child behind her. What's your name, sweetie? Hey, stop. That's none of your business. My husband said this while shielding the child. Like I said earlier, we're strangers now, you no longer have any right to be in this house. He said this and suddenly flashed an unpleasant smirk. Sign the divorce papers, and your son and you get out of the house. His gaze was looking down at Ted and me, shining with a triumphant light. So that's what it was. What does it matter, all sorts of arrangements should have been finished. Just submit the divorce papers, and that's it. We agreed not to ask for any compensation, right? I'm relieved to hear that. I heard you've received a lot from Robin. So there's no need to feel guilty anymore. Her last words seemed to be directed at my husband.
Yeah.
That's right. I really wanted to have registered by today, I'm truly sorry about that. But it seems we'll make it in time for Sean's school entry. Yes, the reason my husband rushed the divorce. It was to ensure the child he had with Michelle could start school on time as a proper family. As a parent, I can understand wanting to enroll the child in elementary school properly. But that's a separate issue from this one. I told my husband and Michelle. Actually, I already submitted the divorce papers this morning. Here, this is the certificate. I handed the e-acceptance certificate of the divorce papers to my husband. As long as I have this, no problem. My husband showed it to Michelle, and the two of them nodded in satisfaction. Then our talk is over, there's no need for you to be here anymore, get out quickly. About that, Ted and I have the right to live here, you're the one who should leave. Don't talk nonsense, this is my house. Poor husband, he doesn't know. I need to educate him properly. Whose name is this house under? That would be my father's. What's his is mine. Wrong, it's in my name. Hearing this, my husband's face showed a moment of surprise, but he quickly laughed and said, You must be confused because you think you have residency rights, that it's in your name? I wouldn't make such a silly mistake. Once we're divorced, you have no relation to my father. Which means you no longer have the right to live here. Sighing, I presented another document. What is this? His eyes widened as he looked at the document. I've been adopted by your father. He decided to leave this house to me. What I showed my husband was the certificate of adoption. My name was clearly written as an adopted child. That's ridiculous. See, it's true, isn't it? Your father did this because I've always cared about him. After my husband brought up divorce, I consulted with my father-in-law. My own parents had both died not long after I got married. My in-laws treated me like their own daughter. That's why I cared for them dearly, far more than their actual son, my husband. My father-in-law had suggested I thoroughly investigate, so he hired a detective agency. They discovered my husband had a mistress and a secret child. You wanted a solo assignment to live with her, didn't you? Michelle had met my husband while working at a nightclub. She was only 20 at the time but quickly became close to my husband. And they developed a deep relationship. Then she became pregnant. My husband decided to lead a double life to live with Michelle and their child. I visited your solo assignment location several times. But now I understand why I never saw any sign of a woman. My husband had 2 houses at his assignment. One home was for living with them, your sweet home. The other was a camouflage to deceive us, so we wouldn't realize there was a woman. After my husband was assigned alone, I visited several times with Ted. I always admired how clean you kept it. But of course, you weren't really living there. My husband had even installed cameras in that house. And he received notifications whenever someone entered the room. When your father found out how deceitful that was, he was furious and decided he would leave nothing to you. And everything would go to Ted instead, and offered me to be adopted. This can't be. My husband probably believed everything was going according to his plans. But he collapsed on the spot when he learned the truth. Do you understand disinheritance? Your father is processing that. What is that? Simply put, it means excluding you as an heir from your father's inheritance. If the process is completed, you will officially no longer be an heir. And the inheritance will pass by representation to Ted. There's a way to exclude an heir if the person leaving the property decides, for some reason, that they shouldn't inherit. In this case, my father-in-law decided to do so because of the almost estranged relationship with his son and the appalling way he treated his family. When my husband loses his qualification as an heir, Ted, as the grandson, will be recognized as a subsequent heir. If my husband disputes this decision, he could file a lawsuit. For that potential situation, my father-in-law decided to adopt me and give me the house as a gift during his lifetime. Your father and I decided to do this after consulting. How can you do something like this? Thinking you were just a homemaker who knew nothing. As he muttered, Ted spoke up in disbelief. What? Dad, you don't know anything? Ted handed a book to him. Mrs. Rose's Brilliant Reasoning? What is this book? I know it. It's a popular light novel right now. It's going to be animated soon. I'm reading it too. I love it. That book, Mom wrote it. She studied a lot to write it, including about the law. Both were stunned by Ted's words. Indeed, I was the homemaker my husband thought I was. Someone who had never done anything worldly. But I loved writing and had been secretly posting novels online without my husband knowing. And using the flower arrangement class I attended part-time as a setting. I wrote a series where Mrs. Rose, the assistant and homemaker, solved difficult cases one after another, which became a big hit. I haven't heard such a story. There's talk of it being animated, and I was just about to confess to you. But then you brought up divorce first, what a pity. Then the royalties from that book are marital property. Right? How much will you make from the adaptation of cartoons? We need to properly divide that wealth too, right? Unfortunately, I have already submitted the divorce papers. Royalties and income from the adaptation of cartoons are no longer any of your concern. Hearing this, my husband yelled out loud, repeating that's a lie over and over. What a foolish man. The moment you realize I have value after years of belittling, deceiving, and trying to drive me out, you come with this? If you have anything to say, talk to my lawyer from now on. Now, please leave immediately. With that, I quickly kicked my husband and Michelle out of the house. I felt sorry for little Sean, but there was nothing I could do for him. My husband repeatedly asked for reconciliation, but there was no way I would accept that. More importantly, make sure you acknowledge Sean properly. He's starting elementary school soon, right? It's cruel to leave it as it is. Later, Michelle also pressed for Sean's acknowledgement, and they officially became a family. It was only right for the sake of the child. After the elementary school entrance ceremony, once their lives had settled, my husband contacted me. You're making a good profit, right? Then cut me some slack on child support, make it like it never happened. Despite such ridiculous requests, I of course rejected them. When I told him that refusal of payment would lead to mediation or court, he quietly agreed to pay. It seems my husband borrowed the money from his company, though he managed to secure a loan from the company, thinking he could keep working at the headquarters and repay it unnoticed. But somehow his actions became known to the company. Moreover, it became clear that his request for a solo assignment was for such purposes. Heaven's vengeance is slow but sure. As the saying goes, the heavens are watching. The higher-ups in the company were furious when they discovered he had used such immoral purposes. As a result, he was demoted and sent to a subsidiary in a rural area. His salary decreased, and now he and his wife are working desperately to repay their debts. But perhaps it was for the best. In a new place, Sean can start as a normal family without anyone knowing he was born under such circumstances. An innocent child shouldn't suffer for his parents' actions. As for me, after the divorce, my work was successfully adapted into a cartoon and sparked a minor craze. Merchandise was developed, and in an era where ebooks are becoming mainstream, my paper book, with a supplement, sold exceptionally well. The editor keeps asking me for the next work. My life is busy, leaving no room to dwell on past hurts. Cartoons are hugely popular all over the world. My work is broadcast here and there, receiving significant feedback internationally. Ted has grown up straight despite everything. He will start university this fall, and during those 4 years, he told me he wants to find what he truly wants to do and his own strength, just like I did. Whatever happens, it's my life, so I won't rely on mom too much. He says such cheeky things, but as a parent, I'd be happy if he relied on me just a bit. Maybe I'll write a new story with a cheeky college student as the protagonist. I have a feeling the next work will also be a hit. I think this to myself as I watch my capable son.
What are you preparing for? Tomorrow is your wedding, right? It's better to avoid the rush in the morning. What? It would be embarrassing if you came. Don't come. Are you serious? Why would I lie? Stay home. Okay. Glad you understand. After this, he was about to face hell, but he didn't know it yet. I am Mandy. I live with my husband, Ted, and my son, Keith. Both of them work for a company, insisting that housework is a woman's job and absolutely refusing to help. Initially, it was just my husband who said that, but seeing him, my son started to do the same. That would have been tolerable, but my husband and son looked down on me for being a stay-at-home mom. It's true what they say, children grow up in the shadow of their parents. Keith is already 29 years old though. I spend my days being ridiculed for just lounging around at home. They hadn't said such things before. Both of them seem tired from work and take it out on me, as if I'm their outlet. It's frustrating to be constantly criticized, but responding in kind would only make things worse. They say whatever they want, calling me fat, ugly and a parasite, but I try not to let it bother me. I thought it would settle down soon, so I decided to endure. Keith has a lovely girlfriend named Christina. She is very considerate and kind. One day, she came to visit our home. Christina usually smiled, but that day, her expression was stiff. Keith had told me there was something important to discuss, and it turned out they had decided to get married. While the marriage itself was a joyful occasion, her expression remained clouded. My husband Ted, envious of his son having a pretty wife soon, and my son Keith, boasting proudly. Christina smiled awkwardly. It seemed that Keith had proposed, and they were going to get married. We can finally be together. I'm looking forward to the ceremony. I hate to say this, but weddings are expensive. Have you saved up properly? Yeah. Well. Something wrong? Keith's cheerful demeanor suddenly changed, and he responded tersely, trying to change the subject. That day, Christina was also staying for dinner, and I was preparing the meal. My husband and son were drinking and chatting around the table. Christina sat there awkwardly. Seeing that, I called her to the kitchen to help with serving the food. When we laid the food on the table, my husband and son booed loudly, probably because they were drunk. Didn't we eat the same thing this month? Do we have to eat it again? You should expand your repertoire. Coming home tired, and then this? It's a total mood killer. It's impossible to have a different menu every single day of the month, you know? You're just taking it easy, right? Nice for you, doing minimal housework and still not going hungry. Really, it's enviable. I wish you'd do your job properly. We work hard every day to bring money home. While they continued to complain, Christina ate uncomfortably. After the meal, my husband and Keith lounged around watching TV. I was cleaning up in the kitchen. She helped me, and we chatted while cleaning up. Then, she brought up a consultation. Christina looked around cautiously to make sure they weren't listening. When Keith proposed, they talked about the cost of the ceremony, but he had impulsively said he had saved up. However, in fact, he hadn't. As the wedding preparations were nearing their end and they had already sent out invitations, it turned out there was no savings. The cost of the ceremony exceeded Christina's savings, and they considered borrowing from friends after being honest with them. However, Keith stopped that. How can I do such an embarrassing thing? If we cancel the wedding now, there'll be a cancellation fee. But we really don't have the money. That's tough. Should I pay for it? Oh, but. Not for that foolish son of mine, but for you, Christina. Thank you so much. I'll definitely repay you. Oh, don't worry about paying me back. Consider it a gift. Thank you very much. But if it's difficult, please let me know. I was really looking forward to the wedding from the bottom of my heart, but on the eve of the ceremony, Keith said something awful to me. When Keith came back home because he had forgotten something, I was checking my clothes and belongings for the ceremony. Huh? What are you preparing for? What do you mean, what? I'm preparing for tomorrow. It's going to be busy from the morning, right? I'm getting things ready now, so we can have a little breathing room. What? Are you actually planning to come to the ceremony? Of course, I'm your parent after all. I didn't invite you. Don't come, it's embarrassing. What do you mean by that? It's embarrassing if you come. Just don't. Are you serious about that? Of course I am serious. Just stay home. Oh. Okay. Then I won't go. Glad you understand. Bye then. Watching my son walk away, I sighed. The embarrassment is on him, not me. Whatever happens, I don't care. On the day of the wedding, I was leisurely sipping coffee. While I was relaxing, the ringtone of my smartphone echoed. When I checked the screen, Keith's name was displayed. Since he had hurled abuse at me the day before, I decided to ignore the call. However, the phone kept ringing again and again. As he didn't seem to give up, I reluctantly pressed the call button, and Keith shouted loudly. Hey! I heard from Christina that you are paying for the venue? That's right. But since you told me not to come, I can't pay, can I? I didn't hear about this? Well, I didn't say anything, so naturally, you wouldn't have. It's chaos here at the venue right now. Just come and pay now. What? I'm not coming. Why not? You said you didn't want me there because it would be embarrassing, right? That doesn't matter now. Why are you being so petty? I'm not being petty. It's your wedding day. I'm just doing what you wanted by not attending. If I had known you were paying for the wedding, I would have wanted you to come. So, you care only about the money? What do you think of me? Man, this is so annoying. Do you have a complaint or something? I have plenty. But if it wasn't for everything that's happened, I would have attended your wedding, even if you told me not to. What about everything that has happened? Don't play dumb. After all the times you've ridiculed me, you have some nerve. I can't remember that. I've got other things on my mind. Lost your memory in all the rush? Remember calling me a parasite, saying how envious you are that I just lounge around all day? Who cares about that now? Just bring the money quickly. Who was it that lied about having savings for the wedding? You said it in the heat of the moment and now you're panicking. It can't be helped, right? Marriage is all about timing and impulse. Money can be figured out, but we're running out of time. Isn't that just being unprepared? Now you're left with no option but to borrow from someone. Well, it's not like that. I had a plan, so no worries. Oh really? And who would that be? I heard a rumor that Christina's parents are rich, so I thought they would lend us the money. You're the worst. And? How did that turn out? It was just a misunderstanding. I heard it from someone. Just because her parents have some branded accessories. That's it? Are you an idiot? Damn, I was misled. Can't forgive those guys. Wait a minute. It's your fault for proposing without thinking ahead. What do you mean? It's not my fault. How can you be so careless with your life partner? Poor Christina. She is sweet on me no matter what. She forgave me even when I told her I had no savings. She didn't forgive you. She had no choice but to accept it after the invitations were already prepared. Well, she accepted it anyway, so what's wrong with that? Don't think just because no one says anything, everything is forgiven. Why? You used to endure whatever I said too. It took a lot out of me, you know? So you were aware that you were saying unpleasant things. It's not unpleasant, it's the truth. The truth? You said I was just lounging around at home. Do you really believe that? Do you underestimate homemakers? Yeah, it's the truth. Housework is easy. And yet all you do is make half-hearted meals. Can you prepare 3 meals a day, each with a completely different menu? Food expenses are not a joke, you know. I don't care, I work outside. Oh. She works too, right? Are you planning to leave all the housework to your wife? That's pretty harsh. No one said that. Once our new life with her starts, I'll do my part properly. I'll talk. You're probably just saying that impulsively too. No. I will share the duties. For her sake. If you really care about your partner, you should have thought more seriously about the money. What's with all this talk about money? Is that all you can say? Well, isn't that the cause of all the trouble you're in now? That, and all the abusive language you've used up until now. You've brought this on yourself. If you just brought the money now, it would solve everything. Be useful for once. See? It's because you always talk like that I got fed up. I never thought it would come to you telling me not to attend. All you do is complain. You should have argued back at the time. I could have, but I'm not as free as you think. But it really was hurtful. You should get into the habit of saying what you think. Maybe you should think before you speak, huh? Are you aware of your surroundings? You're shouting. Is that really okay? There was a sharp intake of breath from the other end of the phone. It seemed he had moved somewhere. After a while, his irritated voice came back, more composed. It sounded noisy over the phone, so I assumed he was at the venue, and I was right. You should have said that sooner. Dad was panicking. I just realized it. I didn't think you would shout like that with people around. You must have known. Were you keeping quiet on purpose? You say things without thinking ahead, right? That's why I guessed as much. If you had just quietly brought the money, I wouldn't have had to shout. I'm not coming. Because I'm a nuisance, right? Because I'm just a parasite. Parasite. That's because you do whatever you want at home. You don't even serve us nice food when Dad and I come home tired. I do think about nutrition and taste when preparing meals, you know? We don't need nutrition. Just fry up some meat or something quick. If you only eat like that, you won't recover from fatigue. I cook with your health in mind. It bothers me that you put effort only into that. What else do you do all day? You're probably just watching TV, right? Who washes the clothes you wear every day? The house is always clean because someone is cleaning it, right? Don't get so smug about just that. And who do you think makes sure you can take a warm bath as soon as you get home from work? You don't need to count all those little things. Little things? They seem little to you, but it's hard labor for me. Working at a company is harder. You're just at home, you don't even deal with people. I do too. Ever heard of neighborhood relations? Life would be difficult if we couldn't communicate smoothly. That's just idle gossip, right? You're just playing around. If it looks like play to you, that's because you don't understand it. I'm worried for Christina. Look, she doesn't have to do that kind of stuff. She works outside too. Even if you go to work, you still maintain neighborhood relations, right? Why does it seem like that doesn't exist to you? That kind of neighborly relationship is outdated. What era are you living in? You're going to build a home with her, right? Having supportive people nearby can be a big help. That's outdated. We can live without that, right? When you're in trouble, those people can help you. At least you should greet them regularly, right? Getting too involved like that just complicates things. It's better not to do it. Who said you need to get deeply involved? A healthy distance is good in any relationship. Huh? Acting all high and mighty. That's none of your business. It's because you do things like that you're in the way. Home is the base of life, right? It's not just about food, clothing, and shelter. You have to care about these things too. If it becomes a hassle, we can just move. Are you going to move every time? Yes. If it doesn't fit, it's necessary to escape from that situation. I won't deny that idea. But in your case, isn't it because you didn't try to fit in? I don't have to fit in. They should adjust to me. That's not something someone who moved in later should say. That attitude will cause you trouble. If it does, it's their fault. Not being kind to new residents is not something a person should do. That attitude. It's not just toward me, your mother, huh? What are you talking about? What do you mean? Relying on others, expecting them to do things without thanks. I'm embarrassed for you. What's wrong with what I'm saying? Come on, just come over here already. I don't want to. Come on. Cut it out. Just give me the money, and then you can go back home. You're good at relying on others, right? Can't you get a loan or something? Christina was trying to ask her parents earlier, but I stopped her. Why? Because it would embarrass me. Absolutely not. Did you by any chance say that to Christina? Not to do that because it would embarrass you? Yeah, she agreed, though reluctantly. It helps that she listens to me. I'm really starting to feel sorry for Christina. It's going to be tough after you're married. You're just going to take advantage of her, aren't you? Nobody feels bad about being relied on. You feel the same, right? That's why I need the money. That's just it, you relying on everyone else makes you look like a parasite. What? What kind of thing is that to say? At that moment, the voices of Ted and Christina could be heard over the phone. They seemed worried about him not coming back to the venue. Keith, perfect timing. Can you hand the phone to your father? What? I'm not done talking yet. Just do it. Overwhelmed by me, Keith reluctantly gave the phone to Ted. Ted's voice betrayed a sense of urgency. Look, Christina is talking about canceling the wedding. Keith could be heard in the background, surprised. What? Christina remained silent. Keith was shouting over the phone earlier, and you were on the other end, right? There were a lot of people around. That's right. Keith was shouting without considering his surroundings. Everyone must have been shocked. The guests started making a fuss, thinking something was wrong, and Christina was explaining everything to them. Everything up to now. Everything? Oh, you mean how Keith said he had wedding expenses covered when he actually didn't and was in trouble? Yes. And about how I've been abusive towards you. Oh, like when you got complaints about the meals being the same and me not doing my job as a homemaker? That's right. Both Keith and I got an earful from Christina's parents. Keith's panicked voice could be heard over the phone. He seemed to be desperately pleading with Christina, but no response from her could be heard. Can you come over now? Explain everything and try to convince everyone. Why should I? Didn't Keith tell me not to come? Don't talk like a child, aren't we a family? Don't say things like you're abandoning us. Abandoning? I've endured all this time without giving up. Endured what? Years of abuse from Keith and you. That was just joking around, what are you talking about now? It didn't sound like a joke to me. Do you understand how much it hurt? Okay, I'll listen to all of it at home whenever you want. Whenever? Do you really think we'll still be together? I've been desperate to leave. What? What are you saying all of a sudden? Haven't you noticed how much I've grown to dislike you? You never said anything. Why bring this up now? I did say. I've been enduring. Do you think I wasn't suffering from your words? You never showed any signs of that. That's because I was enduring. It's not like you'd listen to me anyway. Because you were always silent, both Keith and I thought it was okay. This is what happens when you don't choose your words carefully, both Keith and you. So foolish. In the background, Christina's voice could be heard, sounding quite angry. Keith, apparently flustered, seemed to follow after her, and his voice faded away. Do Christina and Keith look like they'll be okay? You seem to think it's someone else's problem. They told Keith to pay them back later for the cancellation fee of the ceremony. Oh, really? Doesn't that mean you'll have to pay some as well? You are his parent, after all. You too, right? Why only me? Didn't I say I'm getting a divorce? It won't concern me anymore, will it? You think that's allowed? At least, Christina and the others are on my side. It seems like the attendees think so too. How coward. Well, that's how it is. I hung up without waiting for his response. Afterward, Ted and Keith repeatedly called, but I continued to ignore them. According to what I later heard from Christina, the wedding was, of course, cancelled. Attendees who learned of the situation blamed Keith and Ted, suggesting they should bear the cancellation costs. As a result, both were looked down upon by the guests and left the venue dejected. After that, my husband and I divorced. Keith and his father are apparently struggling to get by. Keith's friends, who attended the ceremony, naturally began to distance themselves from him, and he ended up taking out his frustrations on his father, Ted. Moreover, this caused Ted to become isolated at work. I could easily imagine the situation, with colleagues finding it difficult to approach him because of the negative aura around him. They had been calling to ask for money, and I could hear Ted sobbing on the other end of the phone, almost making me burst into laughter, which I had to desperately contain. Although Ted and Keith seemed to be suffering, it was just retribution for how they treated me in the past. There was no room for sympathy. I simply responded with a light "Good luck," and ended the call. I then deleted their contact information immediately afterward. As for Christina, she had become disillusioned with Keith and had broken up with him. I feel sorry about the situation but wish Christina happiness. As for myself, I am living alone for the first time in decades and plan to enjoy my newfound freedom for a while.